All right, guys, so it's 1995 BMW K75 that I came into about 6 months ago, and just spent some time doing it back up again. It was in pretty bad shape, so now it's time to try and figure out how to synchronize the throttle bodies, or at least check it. Now the problem is that so I've got this Sync Pro Motion Pro Sync Pro synchronizer, which I have calibrated already. I didn't video that, but all the levels are the same. I'm only using the first three of the vacuum tubes here for cylinders 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And the problem is that yesterday I was playing around with this, and I made the mistake of not reading how to do this before attempting it. And I played around with the butterfly adjustment screws, which are that one there in the back, right behind the idle adjustment screw. There's a butterfly adjustment screw for the first throttle body to set the butterfly relative to the second one. And then there's another one right there. Sorry, it's kind of hard to hold the light and the camera. Another one right there to synchronize the butterfly of the third throttle body with the second one. And of course there's no adjustment on the second one, it's just the idle adjustment screw. So I guess conventional wisdom dictates that you're supposed to synchronize them at idle using these brass air adjustment screws. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I decided to go and loosen up the other ones to see if there was any bigger change. I don't know if they've ever been messed around with or what, but I've definitely messed around with them, and now I think the synchronization is completely off. So I found some instructions online on how to deal with this scenario, and so I'm just putting together a short video to see how it goes. Basically, the idea here is that you want to synchronize the butterflies with the engine running slightly above idle, and in order to do that effectively, these brass idle adjustment screws have to be screwed in all the way so that effectively they're not being used. So as far as I understand, the standard setting for them is a turn and a half out from bottom, but right now we're just going to bottom them out completely. And I can get to that last one there. A little tricky. It is turning. Bottom them out completely. We're going to start the bike, and we're going to set the throttle position slightly above idle just to keep the bike running, not too high. And then we're going to see how what the vacuum is pulling on each one of the throttle bodies, and hopefully from there we'll be able to adjust the number 1 and number 3 to be aligned with the number 2 vacuum. And once that's done, at that point we can then drop it back down to idle, or excuse me, pull, turn out those brass screws a turn and a half, and do the adjustment at idle. Sorry, the compressor just went on there. Anyway, so we're gonna give it a go and see what happens. Now, for this to work, the bike's got to be warm, and you shouldn't set the high power setting using the choke, because I guess that one, I'm not sure which linkage that one acts on offhand, but as I understand it, that's not the one that you should be using. You should be using the main throttle setting that then pulls the other two linkages into along with it. So we're going to try that. I've got the throttle also has like a friction adjustment screw there, so I'll use that to set the throttle position at a reasonably low power setting, such that my vacuum is reading within the range of the meter, and then we'll go and try and adjust it from there. So I'm going to start the bike up and get it set up, and then we'll check it out in a minute. Okay, so we got the bike running now. There's just under somewhere around 1500 RPM. Choke is off. And you can see that number 2 and number 3 are reasonably well aligned, but the number 1 is way up there. So that's the one I mostly played with. So we're just gonna see if we can turn that adjustment screw and see if we can bring it back down a little. Now, it's pulling a bigger vacuum than the other two, which I imagine that means that the butterfly is more closed. So it might need to be opened a little to reduce the vacuum to allow a little bit more air in. So we're gonna give that a go and see what happens. So it was kind of creeping up in speed there as I was adjusting it. So I adjusted the speed back down a little. It looks like we're a little bit better. Now it's kind of hard to read with all the bubbles in there, unfortunately. So I'll probably have to turn it off and let that fluid settle and try it again. But I think we're getting close. Really doing anything right now, and the bike's kind of changing power on its own, but to be honest, they're pretty close. If we can shake some of this, no amount of shaking will get that air out. So I'm going to try and turn the bike off and start it again, and we'll see what happens. So let's see, we can, yeah, unfortunately all these bubbles remain because the tubes are really narrow, and what happens is I think that the surface tension keeps the surface tension of the fluid. Now, for the record, I filled this up with just regular old antifreeze, just with a little bit of blue food coloring to see it better, so because I didn't have any of the special fluid. But I don't know if that, I'm sure the special fluid probably also has a similar issue to some degree. Anyway, yeah, so that didn't really help. So let's start it up again and see what happens. Okay, so we're just above 1,000 RPM. Pretty good. If anything, number 1's a bit low now. Turn it out just a touch. Just a whisker. And you know what? I'm pretty happy with that. So gonna turn it off again. I'm actually pretty happy with that level, so I'm gonna have to turn those lock nuts down in a moment. But since we're still doing this, let's turn out those idle screws by 1.5 turns each. So here we go. This one's there, so we'll go. That's 1/2 turn. That's 1, and there's another 1/2. This guy here goes 1/2, 1, 1.5. Sorry for the video. It's very challenging to look and film. Okay, here we go. 1/2, 1, and 1/2. Now, I'm going to loosen my throttle friction all the way and get this back down to idle. And I guess we're gonna fire up the bike and see where it's sitting. Brass adjustment screw. I think we need a little bit more air. Maybe just a touch more. There we go. So I turned that first brass screw maybe not quite a 1/4 turn out. Now the idle's a bit high, so let's see if we can adjust the idle speed now. Bit high. A bit closer to 1,000. Not really sure why it's not. See if I can push this down. Okay. Probably what I need to do is actually clean my throttle body linkages. But alright, now we're a little bit out of whack again. So let's bring number 3 down and number 1 that's good enough for me. Thanks very much. All right, so I just finished tightening down these butterfly adjustment screws, the one down here and the one back there. That one, by the way, is a real pain to get to. I actually had to use a what is this, 5/16 wrench. I don't know if it's in a metric or not, but this one seemed to fit. I think the other one was an 8mm that kind of had good luck with. But anyway, they're very close in size, but I actually ended up grinding mine down because I don't know if you can see, but it's extremely close to this throttle cam. And so much so that it's almost impossible to get a wrench in there to actually undo it, especially with all the fuel rail here and everything. What I found worked for me was to actually lift this up so that you can get a straight shot from here. And you can kind of squeeze a wrench in there and give it, you know, a 1/16 of a turn at a time till it breaks loose. Yeah, it's really terrible spot for that one. This one's not so bad. Anyway, tighten them up. So we're gonna see now how the balance behaves at slightly higher power. So I'm gonna just fire it back up again, and we'll see how far off they are now that's tightened. Too bad, but I don't know why my idle is all over the place. Could be that I have an air leak somewhere or something. We'll figure that out another time. Oh yeah, there it is. Because my throttle bodies are probably filthy dirty. So idle synchronization is okay-ish. Not bad. Maybe we can reduce number 3 a little. About going anymore, because if I do have a leak, all this adjustment is for nothing. Let's bring it higher speed and see what happens. Well, they seem to be moving together, so that's good enough for me for now. Thanks again. Okay, so at the risk of screwing up the tuning of my bike even more, it turns out that I think the idle speed was all over the place because my throttle position sensor wasn't sensing that we were in the idle position. And I read up a little bit on this online as well. And essentially they said that there is a click that occurs when you reach idle. Presumably there's some sort of a switch that's being activated in the throttle position sensor. I don't quite know how it works, but anyways, that switch I think changes the fuel schedule quite significantly for idle. I was able to hear that when I was pressing down on this idle screw, which wasn't actually touching this plate. So that led me to believe that, you know, maybe there's just a slightest misalignment between the position of that switch and where the butterflies sort of rest at the idle position. So I set that screw so that it actually does contact that plate when the butterflies are in their natural idle position. And now I'm going to adjust the throttle position sensor such that it just clicks in this position. And I'm going to tighten it up and see if that helps stabilize things a little bit. So let's see here. Let's see if you can hear this click first of all. Get some light here. All right, so I've loosened it up, and see if we can listen to this. Okay, so I'm going to tighten it with the switch activated right there, and we'll see if it idles better. Okay, I've tightened it down. Let's see if we can demonstrate this again. So now this hits the bottom plate when it's at idle, and if I move it slightly, you should be able to hear that click. And if I do the same with the actual throttle itself, seems to work. So let's fire it up and see if it works. Okay. Okay. All right, we're at idle. Yeah, seems to have fixed